I'm going to do a swing analysis on Bryson DeChambeau, the current Bryson DeChambeau. I'll talk a little bit about his swing before. Bryson came to see me way back when he was playing in the South Beach International Amateur, and he came over to Doral when I was at Doral, and this is when he was using the all-length clubs, and also his driver was very short at the time. And when I measured his swing speed back then, it was 109 miles an hour, and I talked to him a little bit about this, about going with a longer driver. Probably needed more speed to play the PGA Tour, so we talked for quite a while, probably over at Doral for a few hours, and then through his career I've spent time with Bryson, watching him practice, talking to him. It's always super interesting talking to Bryson. So now I'm going to sit down and do this analysis, and we'll take a look at what he's doing right now and why he's hitting the ball so incredibly far, and why he's one of the best players in the world, and he's also one of the most interesting people in the world to watch. And obviously he's a social media monster. So let's take a look. Here we go. This is address. I've drawn some lines up there so you can follow along and see what the heck I'm doing here. I've studied video as much as anybody. I've done more video analysis probably than anybody, and we've got a great angle here, shot by someone that knows what they're doing off a tripod, and we can look and see some things. Now obviously you see a lot of stuff up there, but the most important lines right now are, look at the red lines, and you look at the angle of the lead foot, how his right foot is positioned. He cocks his right leg in at address, and then you see the super weak left hand grip. Those green dots are going to represent his hip action. So the top line is how the swivel of the hips go in the backswing. That's all it is. But you see the square around his head, and the red line is the angle that he turns his head away from the target. Okay, so there's a ton of stuff we can talk about, but that's good to start with. And now we'll just start the swing, and I want you to notice something, how he lifts his left toe as he takes it away. That's kind of interesting. You can see here how that happens, and it's very much a one-piece takeaway, except that he elevates a little bit, about 1 inch up, right there at the beginning of his swing. So I call this step one in the 8 sections of the swing. That's when the club gets away. So very important that he got a nice takeoff right there, and you can see that he's already pushed to the right, and that's something he didn't used to do, but he's early moving off into the right side. And then as he gets this club away, you can see just a massive one-piece takeaway with almost no wrist action. Very interesting. You see the hips swiveling there as he takes the club away. And you might notice at this spot, though, that his head's gone back down. Now it's dropped about 1 inch down. So it was 1 inch up, dropped about 1.5 inches down at this stage right here. Still going into his backswing. And he's starting to gain some hinge in the wrist, not too much yet. And as he goes into his backswing, we'll just kind of stop it right here at max head movement back. So how much has that head gone back? We're going to say 3 inches back. His head's turned a little bit more. His head's slid to the right. His knees are almost together. He's lifted his left heel 5 or 6 inches off the ground. So you would have to say there that weight into the back post is huge. Maybe 90% into his right leg. All you have to do is lift your left foot off the ground that much and move your left knee over yourself, and you can, sense how much he has moved over. And that's a lot different than he used to do. He used to keep his head super centered and his body centered. He had more of a centered golf swing, which he was great. And Bryson, by the way, has always been a big guy. He put on a lot of weight as he gained more yardage. He got his swing speed up into the 130s, and at his peak, I think he got into the 140s for long driving, into mid 140s, which is just ridiculously fast. Okay, now, here we go, and you're going to see that he goes longer in his backswing and he starts to really gain hinge. The club face, you can see, is not closed at all. He's now starting to put that left foot down a little bit, and down is going to be a key word here because he really goes down. And this is the sit down or squat position. I talked about this a long time ago in the X Factor writing that I did, the squat, the sit down, and nowadays we are also talk about the ground force reaction. One thing I used to talk about quite a bit was how this right leg pushes down. You keep flexing that right knee as you start down if you want to hit the ball far. And that was on the back cover of the X Factor book. So it's sort of a recentering move right here. He did not push his left heel forward. It just goes back down very close to where it started. You can also see that he's bent the left arm. Look at this sit down, and I've put a dot now on his belt. So this is the amount of drop. And maybe you know this, you probably don't, that you can go down further with your hips than your head. I doubt if anybody knows that. Maybe somebody did. Just show me in writing where somebody has talked about that. Okay, now we go forward, and in this section right here, I measured the angle between his left arm and the club, and it was at 137 degrees, where in the backswing it was, still at about a 90 degrees. So it just gained tremendous angle in the shaft. Well, here he comes, and now we start to watch those hips move, and we start to see how much lateral motion he has in this golf swing. And you can measure that from this angle of his right leg from where it was at address and see how far forward he's going. And you see the head dropped. The head dropped a good 5 inches here, but the hips dropped more than that. You can see this easily. Here he comes into hitting it. And you're going to see when Bryson comes into impact, the shaft's vertical. There's not lag in the shaft at this point. He's got all that angle out when he hits the ball. The shaft is between his arms. Again, surprises a lot of people. I like to see the move off the inside of that right foot. That's a nice power move. If you draw a line straight up his right leg, it's going to be out in front of his body. And I also had a little purple line here. You might have noticed from address that he never slides the upper body past that original spot. And the left shoulder is going to start going up. But one thing that with Bryson, as we look at how much vertical he gets from address, which is this top green line, he's not even going to, barely get back up to that spot as he gets through here. Now you're going to see the shaft at 90. I call this the power line, the extension position. So if I whip this club back to, this is called delivery position. The shaft's at a 90, and it'll be right on line. And then as he goes through, he gets here when the shaft gets parallel again, and it's back up to its 90, only it's much higher on this side than it was back here at the delivery position. Now his leg is finally straightening up, but you could tell it wasn't straight at the impact position. So some of the things that Bryson does are contradictory to what you hear as far as going up when you hit it. Yes, he's going up, but not quite as much as some of the other players we look at that hit the ball a long ways. His head's still lower than it was at address. And then we go up to finish, and you're going to see how far forward he goes, which with Bryson looks kind of odd to say the least, where his right shoulder is so far forward and his head's forward. And if we looked at how far his head moved or his nose moved from finish position all the way up here to where it was all the way back down here. It's just an unbelievable amount of head movement in the swing. And you can see how much he's up on his heel, off his toe at the finish. And there you have the longest driver on the planet for a top tour player. Obviously, Bryson is playing the LIV, not playing the PGA Tour, but he is the US Open champion. He's obviously one of the greatest players on the planet, and of course one of the most interesting. I thought you'd like to get an in-depth analysis, because you see all kinds of different ideas out on social media, on Instagram, YouTube. This will be on my YouTube channel. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got some real good ideas here. Hope you get to see what Bryson is really doing. And I hope you'll visit my YouTube channel often.